Hello, today we are testing viral rice paper recipes. Back again with this super fun series where I scour the internet for different viral recipes. This one in particular, rice paper, I feel like has been a very highly requested choice. Just like with the fire ramen, rice paper really had its moment. If you look at the viral recipe videos I've done before, a bunch of them actually already feature rice paper. So it kind of made sense to finally do a dedicated one. But I'm pretty sure we are really pushing the boundaries of what the rice paper can do today. I feel like after digging through the internet and finding these 8 different viral recipes, there's a lot less wrapping things and a lot more transforming the rice paper into different things, questionable things. So it's gonna be an adventure. Before we get started though, very quickly on a side note, I have some very exciting news because I'm actually going to be traveling to Singapore and Thailand, Bangkok specifically, in 1 week. Super excited because this is actually going to be my first time in Thailand. So if you have any recommendations, please leave them in the comments down below. So a lot of vlogs to come. But also, actually, in preparation for this trip, I actually made a few new friends from Thailand on Azar, who is also the sponsor of this video. But basically, I was trying to learn a few new phrases in Thai, and who better to learn it from than the locals? Phrases like Thao Rai or Hong Nam Yu Ting Nai. Definitely still need to work on that, but they were very patient with me, bless them. But I ended up being so distracted by how gorgeous her nails were. I was trying to ask her which salon she went to until she told me she actually did it herself, which is some crazy talent. So I told her to, you know, show it off a little bit for us. Anyways, there's just a little something that ended up being really fun and just made me even more excited to finally be in Bangkok. If you want to check Azar out, you can actually search Azar on YouTube. There's a lot of fun videos there. And if you want to give it a try, you can use the link in the description box that I'm gonna go ahead and put below. With that all said, let's get cooking. So I'm starting off with one of the recipes that was actually most excited about. I feel like I saw this everywhere where we're basically gonna transform rice paper into everyone's favorite saucy, slurpable noodles. And the trick to really getting that thick chewiness I see is to stack 5 pieces of rice paper on top of each other, making sure that it's soaked through and that there's no air pockets in between. And that's gonna go straight into the microwave, which actually ends up making them a lot softer and a lot hotter. It was very hot to touch, so I had to give it a second to cool. This is what it looks like now. I'm just drizzling on some oil. This is to help with the stickiness, especially since we're gonna have to cut this up in 2 strips. So I'm just oiling everything up. And you can already kind of see how flexible this noodle is. But really, again, oil is the key to keeping this from clumping together. And so while that's on the side, I'm just making a very quick noodle sauce. It's the usual with, you know, garlic, onions, chili, soy sauce, vinegar, sugar, just something very fragrant and very flavorful. Because once this sauce is done, all the noodles are gonna go into a separate bowl, and that sauce is gonna go right on there, just drizzled all on, and give that a good mix, a good toss. And I have to say, this is already looking very delicious. As somebody who craves this kind of noodles like all the time, I'm not gonna lie, I was very intrigued when I first saw this, and I'm really hoping that it satisfies that slurpy, saucy noodle craving. Maybe look at it though, right? It is giving that sort of like biang biang noodle type situation. It seems pretty good. Takes on the sauce pretty well. Let's give it a try. You know what this is? This actually tastes like the sweet potato noodles, the glass noodles you sometimes get in like hot pot. So it has that like chewy, bouncy texture. And the thickness, I think, is what contributes to that thicker, chewier texture. You can see the stretchiness it has. I feel like it just takes on the sauce really well. Extremely flavorful bite. Wow, okay, I am impressed. This was a fantastic one to start with. Can confirm. It is indeed worth your time. Would actually give this 9 out of 10. Just a little slippery to deal with, but everything else is full marks. So a lot of these recipes are essentially using rice paper to recreate other rice products, and this is one of them, where the idea is to transform rice paper into rice cakes. You know, like tteokbokki, the Korean rice cakes? And the way to do this is to roll them up tightly, just like this, after soaking the paper. You just want it to be pliable enough that you can, roll it up. And I just thought I'd double wrap these, and make it look a little thicker, chunkier, just like the Korean rice cakes you see at the supermarket. And now that it's at the right thickness, I can just very quickly cut them up into the right size, kind of already looking like the real thing. I also thought it'd be fun to make oil tteokbokki, which is one of my favorite street foods. Very, very easy to devour. The key ingredients for the sauce is very similar. I'm just going for a garlicky, spicy, sweet. And again, because the idea is then to coat the rice paper, well, the rice cakes now, I suppose, in this very vibrant sauce, I'm really just trying to reduce it a little bit here, just until I feel like the sauce is clinging onto the surface of the rice cakes just right. And it's ready to be served up, sprinkle of sesame seeds, and it really does just look like the real deal. This one is honestly pretty crazy to me. It looks just like rice cakes. That thickness from every point, it actually does just look like rice cakes. Pretty sure this is some kind of witchcraft, but that's also why I double wrapped it to make sure it looked chunkier. Now to see if it also tastes like rice cakes. This is some pretty crazy chewing sounds. It does have the chew of the rice cakes. If anything, it's actually even chewier, I would say, because it's so intensely wrapped together. Think of the normal chewiness you get from a Vietnamese spring roll, and now times 10. That's why it takes a while to chew. But I feel like it is one of those things where if I didn't have access to buying regular Korean rice cakes, honestly, I feel like this could work. Depending on how chewy you want it though, I would say you could wrap more or less. Look at this cross section. This is exactly the same as a Korean rice cake. You could have fooled me. My jaw is getting a little tired though. 7.5 out of 10. As much as it looks like rice cakes, I feel like it doesn't hit that same craving. Still, lots of potential here. Now, I remember rice paper chips being a very popular thing back then, where we would kind of deep fry them, but I recently saw this version of it that actually air fries them instead. All you have to do is fold it and cut it up into pieces before air frying it. The faster you work here, the easier it is to do. Now, my mistake was thinking I needed oil, which was bad. It kind of made the chips explode into a completely different shape, so don't use oil. However, I do also have to warn you, it does sound like popcorn popping in the air fryer. It does get pretty intense. I actually had to do a second batch because my first batch popped around too much and broke, but this is what they should look like this little baby pillow. You could eat them as is, but it's a lot more enjoyable with your choice of seasoning. I went with a mala salt. Toss that around and you have a very quick and easy snack. This took so much longer than I thought it was going to. It was supposed to be very quick. Just fold it together, air fry it. I feel like I made it harder on myself. I think adding oil really does just transform it into something a lot crazier looking. It's without oil that you can achieve these pillowy rice bites. Oh wow. Okay, I expected crunch. I didn't expect that much crunch. Oh my goodness. Oh yeah. This is like eating those puffed rice crackers or almost like a corn snack. Super airy, super light, super crispy. Kind of addictive too. Wow, the fact that this really is just 2 ingredients and you can get this wonderful snack. I'm gonna give this one a 9 out of 10. Taking 1 off mainly because it was so much longer than expected, but well rewarded, I guess. You know those steamed rice rolls you can get at dim sum? Well, this hack is basically recreating that. And I honestly can't believe I have not thought of this before. It's so simple.
all you have to do is just soak the rice paper and put in your fillings. I went with shrimp and scallions, a classic. Then you just wrap it up around the sides, sort of like an envelope. You just want to make sure the sides are sealed, and that's pretty much it. The last thing to do is, once again, to just brush on some oil. This is to make sure it doesn't stick to each other or to the plate, and that is ready to be steamed. I actually ended up doing this in the rice cooker, around like 25 minutes or so on steam mode. It's super easy, so little cleanup, and while that's cooking, I also just made a very quick sauce to drizzle on when it's done. Oyster sauce, soy sauce, sugar, oil, and there it is, dim sum on easy mode.
I also had really high hopes for this one. It really does just look like the steamed rice rolls we know, which I guess makes sense given that it is rice paper. Just never thought that we could do it this way. The shrimp is super big and juicy, and I'm once again salivating, but the rice wrapper is this beautifully soft, translucent, almost like silken robe around the shrimp, I want to say. This is delicious. The rice paper, when you steam it a little longer, it kind of works in your favor where it becomes a little less intensely chewy, and it just goes so well with the filling on the inside. Nice little break in between textures, and it's so easy. I just want to say, steamed rice roll is not easy to make at home. It is super tedious. This, I genuinely feel, is a fantastic shortcut to achieve that same effect. I love this. If you're a shrimp lover too, let me tell you, this is the way to make sure your shrimp is definitely juicy. Honestly, no notes, this is a 10 out of 10. The efficiency, the taste, the ease of it, perfection.
We have now entered the more adventurous zone of the video. So this is a bit of a bizarre one where we're gonna be making a brown sugar boba of all things with rice paper. I'm skeptical, but we're gonna give it a try. The steps are honestly pretty simple. We're just soaking the rice paper again until we can roll it up, just like we did earlier, and then just cutting it into these little boba shape sizes. So they kind of look like tiny little irregular balls-ish. Yeah. And then in a separate pan, I'm making the brown sugar syrup, where once that's ready, I'm tossing in my rice paper boba balls into it directly. Exactly the same as I would do with boba. All I'm doing is just cooking that down a little until I feel like they all have a nice brown sugar coating. They go straight into the serving glass, give it like a little whirl, at the base of the glass, and then go the ice and the milk, and that's brown sugar boba milk, if you will.
All right, this one's an interesting one. Deceptively convincing though. If I just put it all in like a brown sugar syrup like that, probably wouldn't be able to tell. I can't find my boba straw, so I'm gonna have to eat this with a spoon. The rice paper itself, when it's covered in syrup, it honestly looks a little bit like mochi or like irregular shaped boba, especially if you hand make it yourself. I had high hopes, but I think my skepticism was well placed. As somebody who loves boba and I love the chewiness, I kind of thought the rice paper here would be able to give us that. I feel like there is something with the cooking process here that is not letting the rice roll fully get to that texture. It just becomes a little confusing. Right now it's actually a little hard in places. I'm not sure it actually absorbed the brown sugar syrup as well as I thought it would. It's just one of those things that look probably more delicious than it actually is. So I don't know. I will have to give this a 3 out of 10 on my end. But hey, if you've tried it at home and you really like it, let me know.
Going back to the idea of recreating rice products with rice paper, this time we are making mochi. You could also do this with whipped cream, but I'm going in with Greek yogurt as my filling, making sure it's a nice generous scoop. Then the strawberry goes in. Kind of just trying to, cover it up completely with the yogurt before I'm slowly wrapping it up. Except this first try broke almost immediately. I think I might have waited too long, so I tried again using a bowl this time to help with shaping it better. So now it looks like a little money bag. There's a lot of excess, so I'm just cutting the knot off and flipping it around, and that honestly kind of really does look like mochi. To amp up the illusion some more, I'm also just putting some sugar on top, and voila.
This is another one that really honestly looks like the real thing we're trying to make. It looks like a perfect mochi, honestly, a little daifuku situation. I actually also saw some people put ice cream in this. The question is it gonna give us that same satisfaction as a mochi does? Maybe. It is just a chunky little thing. The cross-section is cross-sectioning, and the chewiness is there. This time though, however, the rice paper is just rice paper as is. And I think it's a little hard for me to take that out of my head. Now, I thought the load of cream, the yogurt, and strawberry inside would kind of negate that a little bit, but I feel like because it's so soft on the inside, it almost like sort of dissipates in your mouth before you even get to the rice paper. So it doesn't blend together as well as mochi does, but I do love the idea of it. If you're trying to be healthier, it's a give and take type of situation, I feel. 5 out of 10. I think it looks really cute. I think it's super fun. I just don't think it can compare to the real deal. Sorry, little rice paper mochi.
Some of you probably have already seen this, my version of the viral rice paper croissant, but I just couldn't not include it because it's just so wild as a concept. Speed running through it a little bit here. We're just making the egg milk mixture, which is going to be what we're soaking the rice paper in to create those croissant layers. I found 5 pieces to be the ideal number to getting that proper rise and croissant layer look. Just stacking them one on top of the other before I'm cutting them up into 3 pieces. Again, creating layers by stacking them onto each other like this. Now I can roll until I form this croissant of sorts. A little bit of demerara sugar on top to give it some extra crunch. Half an hour in the oven later, and you have yourself some croissants.
The infamous rice paper croissant. We are back again. It just felt like something I couldn't not include. If you want a full debrief of how the first attempt at this went down, would recommend checking this video out. Today, I actually ended up making this with some bigger rice paper. So this croissant is actually much bigger than the one before. It has this like beautiful golden color. This is what our cross section looks like today. It is a little more tight knit, I want to say. It smells eggy, smells custardy and sweet. This time it actually turned out even more mochi-like. You can see how this texture is basically like rice cake. So once again, you do get that crispiness on the outside and then that sort of chewiness on the inside. It tastes like egg tart, you know, that kind of eggy sweetness. This is another one of those recipes that I feel like is super novel. You just have no idea how they even came up with this. 6 out of 10. Would enjoy it if I eat it once, not twice.
As always, I've saved the one I'm most intrigued about for the last, where we're going to be making fruit roll-ups with rice paper. So fascinating. The first step is to make a quick puree, a jam of sorts. So I'm going with strawberry, my favorite flavor, just crushing them up as best as I can before straining it so I can get all the liquidy bits. It is a very intense strawberry flavor though, and this is what we're going to be soaking the rice paper in directly, making sure to really get it on both sides. I may have been a little too greedy here, but the idea is then to lay it out on a parchment paper, and we're just gonna dry it in the oven for about 2 to 3 minutes, just so it's not tacky anymore, or not as tacky at least. And just as you would an actual fruit roll up, I'm kind of just folding it up in a parchment paper so it ends up actually looking like a little fruit roll snack. How cute is that?
here it is, our fruit wrapper situation. I am worried that now, as I'm unwrapping this, that I maybe made it a little too wet. This is the consequence of me trying to put as much strawberry on there as possible. You know, I'm peeling it the way you would peel a fruit, oh my God. You know, I think I just have to go for it. You know what's crazy? As crazy as this looks, this actually tastes 100% like strawberry. Drowning it in strawberry puree really did the trick. It smells like strawberry, it tastes like strawberry. I barely taste the rice paper, honestly. I feel like the strawberry flavor really just like penetrated this throughout. The texture of it, in a way, it actually also does remind me of like the candy. Kind of crazy, pretty insane to come up with this. This is incredibly creative. It does take a lot of time to make though, and you know, it's all that fruit for basically one fruit roll up. A 7.5 out of 10. Not something that I would personally make again, I think, but I would recommend trying at least once. And so there it is. All of our viral rice paper recipes, tried, tested, rated, made it into a lot of things I would have never even thought about. Again, I know this one was a very popular choice for a lot of you. What do you want to see next for this series? Let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, remember to subscribe and like, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.